Начинать потихоньку. Коллеги, добрый день. Наши дорогие спикеры, дорогие участники, спасибо, что
Colleagues, good
присоединились сегодня к
afternoon.
нам.
Thank you very
Пока
much
мы
for joining us
собираемся,
today.
я еще раз скажу, что сегодняшний вебинар проходит на двух языках, на английском и на русском. Чтобы выбрать язык,
Just a
который
few
вам
moments, I would
комфортнее,
like to remind you
нижней
that
части
our
Zoom
webinar is
найдите
held in two
значок
languages.
глобуса и
Please
выберите тот
find the
язык,
globe
который вам
icon
нужен,
at the
английский или
bottom of this
русский.
screen to
Dear
choose the language that
participants,
you
thank you
prefer.
for joining us today for this webinar. We are happy to have you here with us. And if you wish to continue in English language, our webinar, please click icon globus on the globe on the bottom of the Zoom panel and choose the language which you prefer. So, and we are moving forward. Let me begin just with a... Давайте я продолжу на русском языке.
So
Переключаюсь
I will
сама.
switch to the Russian language. I will just explain you briefly what PASTE is. It's a UK-based charitable foundation that supports palliative care professionals since 2019.
Продуктов, которые мы предоставляем.
There are certain products that we provide. Our organization runs educational programs in the South Caucasus, Central Asia, Eastern Europe, and the Baltic countries. We help experts gain knowledge and expertise and promote the exchange of experience in the field of palliative care. We have in-person training schools, webinars, and you are participating in such webinars. There are also communities of palliative care experts that we have been supporting, that we help thanks to different chat rooms and platforms. There is also a grant program and a big resource of different media products that are available on the website, and we will provide you a link soon as well. You can subscribe to our newsletter, and my colleague Felix will share the link. There will be a small form to fill in that will help you to subscribe and get the news, updates, some valuable information. And we have a Telegram chat room as well. We will share the link with you as well. So please join us there. We have much valuable information there, provided in English and in Russian languages. We'll be glad to hear from you there as well. And before we begin, I would like to say that our organization is a non-profit organization that exists and operates thanks to the support of donors. So therefore, we would be grateful for your support. Therefore, you can see the QR code for donations on this slide, and in the chat we will be very grateful for you. It will stay in the chat. Please feel free to support us in this way. Once again, the webinar is held in two languages, Russian and English. You can select the language that you prefer. At the bottom of the screen, there is a globe icon. So now we are moving to our speaker. Today's webinar is the second webinar in our series on spiritual support for children in palliative care. Our speaker today is Varis Bogdanovs. Thank you very much for joining us today. He was our speaker 3 years ago. There was a webinar devoted to the same project. And today our speaker will share with us some basic information and new ideas, his personal experience that he has had for over 3 years. It's important to note that our webinar with Varis became a reality thanks to Anna Jansone. I will give the floor to her. She is a long-standing partner of Paediatric. She's the chair of the board of the Latvian Children's Palliative Care Society, the head of the Psychosocial Rehabilitation and Children's Palliative Care Service, and ICPCN expert. And the floor is yours. Thank you for being with us today. Good afternoon. I'm really glad that today we can share with you our experience related to providing spiritual support to palliative care children patients. We have been doing this for more than 26 years. So you can see that we have quite a long experience in this sphere. At the beginning, when we started providing palliative care to children, patients at home, we included a chaplain into our team. And today, I think that many of you will understand the difference between spiritual care provided by chaplain and spiritual help provided by a pastor. I mean, religious help. So these are two spheres where people can get palliative spiritual support. Our model of children's palliative care at home, as all standards in this sphere show, it is a multidisciplinary field. So it's important to have social workers, medical clinicians, chaplains. So I think it will be very interesting to hear from Varis and his experience. I think the floor can be given to him. Yes, Sanda, thank you very much for your introductory remarks. It's very important indeed. And before we begin, I will just explain how it will go. So Varis will show his short presentation. He will introduce himself, speak about his experience, and then we will move into an interview format. Dear participants, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them down into the chat room. So, Varis, the floor is yours. Would you like me to show the presentation, or you will do it on your own? Can we see the presentation? Yes, we can see it. Just please share your screen so that we will be able to see it better.
Pašā apakšā vari ir tāds, tur, kur ir procenti blakus kreisā pusē, tas jānospiež. Uz sarkanās līnijas apakšā ikoniņa tāda, aiz grāmatiņas.
Anda speaks Latvian. So it means that the presentation, the slides are very small. Yes, that's right. Actually, it's better to share the screen. Actually, I've opened it, but yeah, I will see.
Наверху есть слайд-шоу, дизайн, анимейшн, слайд-шоу есть. Ну, вот в верхней части.
Above, you will see slide animation
Нажать
show.
туда, и там будет показывать слайды.
Can you see it?
Не знаю,
На
пока.
100% ставить, да?
And I should put
Борис, если я буду демонстрировать слайды, если вам комфортнее.
100%. Yes, actually, Maria can do it. Thank you.
Да, говорите следующий слайд.
Yes, okay, I will just move on, I will speak, and you will help me with the slides. Thank you. Okay, perfect. So yeah, the first slide is here. Great. Well, good afternoon once again. I have been introduced. I have been working as a chaplain in palliative care since 1998. In the corner, you will see the symbol of our society. And actually, I have been working there since the very beginning with adults in the first place, and then since 2018 I have been working in pediatric palliative care. So 3 years ago I made a presentation on this very topic, but the foundation remains the same. The palliative care remains the same. Some things I will repeat them, some things will be completely new, but everything will be presented from a somewhat different perspective that I have prepared for you today. Most of the children under our care remain with us for a long time, often 4 years and even decades. So my focus today will mainly be on children who require complete care, children who do not speak and will never speak, who do not walk and will never walk. So it means that they depend on the parents. At the same time, everything I will say also applies to other areas of palliative care. Our cooperation with families often lasts 10 years or more. And so what we build with them are long-term relationships of care. I will pay special attention to emotions and sentiments and feelings in my presentation. These things often remain in the background of professional discussions about palliative care, yet they influence care much more strongly than rational arguments. So, what are the components of spirituality? We know them, values, belief, and dogmas, sacred things, existential questions. All people believe in something, actually. The difference lies only in the direction and in the objects of their belief. Even the statement, I do not believe in anything, is itself a form of belief. In palliative care, it's far more valuable and productive to look for common ground and shared values, such as those shown on this slide. We try to find points of connection around these questions, values, meaning, and so on. Although everything I have said may seem to relate mainly to the mind, in reality, all these areas affect our emotions and inner experience even more strongly than our rational thinking. For example, when we buy something, what do we base our choice on? Only on technical parameters. While in reality, most of the time our choice is based on whether we like something or not. And only afterwards, the practical evaluation comes into play. Often we make a decision even while ignoring or compromising on certain practical needs. We might say, well, yes, it's not exactly what I wanted, but I really liked it, so I bought it. One of the basic principles of marketing says that people actually buy positive feelings, and emotions. If we follow this analogy, then we are offering something that nobody likes and nobody really wants. The next slide, please. Well, we know this quite well. This is one of the most important observations. Interestingly, when we hear this, we all agree that it seems obvious, yet at the same time, we often do the opposite. We divide the human being into parts, some considered important, others less important or insignificant. This is an illusion, or to say it plainly, it's a lie. A person is indivisible. There's only one process in which a human being actually falls apart into separate parts, and it's death. How can we quickly wake up from this illusion? Well, imagine that something seemingly insignificant hurts, for example, your little finger, and suddenly it can take over your entire attention and become the center of everything. And this is just an example. Next slide, please. We can discuss about it for a long time. What is the reaction of each of us when we hear the idea that we will die? Well, not right now, of course, but someday in the distant future that will happen. Our resistance to death is best explained by our emotions, which convince us that death is impossible for us personally. Emotionally, we simply cannot imagine the real end of our lives. And the causes of deaths is connected to something bad. And interestingly, the sphere of us, the sphere of emotions that changes all the time, doesn't explain death. In the most unstable and changeable part of the inner world, God has placed left within us a difficult to explain sense of immortality. Is this not similar to the denial that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross described in her book On Death and Dying? Denial is a defensive reaction to a threat, while this emotional sense of immortality exists even before any conscious threat appears. Emotions and feelings are a way in which we reflect reality. Unlike perception, they do not reflect objects themselves, but rather our relationship to the world around us, to events, to other people, and even to our own bodily sensations. Why is it important? If it is so difficult for all of us to accept our own mortality, it becomes easier to understand the reactions of parents under our care when we talk about the children's diagnosis and about the limited time of their child's life. So it's very important to think about it. Emotions are something that define what we like and do not like. Why is it so important? If it is so difficult for us to understand our own mortality, how can we help others? How can we help parents when we speak about diagnosis or about the end of life? That is something that will come soon. We should take it seriously. The next slide, please. And of course, everything begins with a diagnosis. The unholy trinity, as I call it, fear, shame, and guilt. If something goes wrong somewhere, it will lead anyway to fear, shame, and guilt. These emotions lie behind many situations where something goes wrong in life. They're often the basis for manipulation within families and society. Fear often turns into anger, guilt often leads to despair, and shame often produces resentment. All of this ultimately leads to deep loneliness. A diagnosis that foretells inevitable decline and death awakens these powerful emotions. Most often, they are suppressed in everyday life.
Это также является причиной тревоги и порождает склонность к избеганию. Более того, эмоции возникают независимо от нашей воли.
People may not even recognize them immediately. They cannot name them. This uncertainty itself creates anxiety and encourages avoidance. Moreover, emotions arise independently of our will. They do not obey us. Because emotions are changeable and difficult to recognize, express, and regulate, many people come to the conclusion that they should be suppressed, either completely or selectively. The greatest difficulties arise when strong emotions cannot be expressed properly and begin to harm others. Many people eventually conclude, incorrectly, that these emotions must simply be forbidden, eliminated. As a result,
that's how the disintegration of a family
people begin
happens.
to avoid
And
situations
the most prevalent model
strong
is
feelings.
the avoidance of
This
all
is
kinds of
often how
stress
alienation within families
that can be found in
begins,
people.
eventually leading to a breakdown in
Solitude
relationship.
is everywhere. And well, people and parents try to find other parents and they can't do this. But this doesn't really address the problems of the solitude, because parents can be crying about their children for a long time. Children fully depend on their mothers. They don't speak. And parents of children are under our care, our custody, and sometimes they share about the reactions over their children. And well, we have the full right also to question everything that parents say. We always have a choice. And I would like to illustrate it with an old joke. Yesterday, through the window, we saw an owner of a dog that was talking to its pet as if the pet was understanding what was said. And well, we were laughing at this together with my cat. It's interesting that we all talk to our pets, to our dogs, to our cats, and of course they don't answer. But quite often they can respond quite well to what we are saying. And I think you know a movie that was shot quite some time ago, featuring Tom Hanks, that is called Castaway. So this is just the movie that tells the story of Robinson Crusoe. And this is also a good illustration to understand better what I mean here. The main character does not go crazy while being on an uninhabited island, because he talks to Mr. Wilson. And who is Mr. Wilson? Well, this is a speaker with the brand Wilson. And if we take it as a reality, well, the main character is talking to the ball, right? And it looks like he's crazy, but actually he is not. Those who are under our care, they experience different changes because of neurological system, and they stay hungry, they fast for quite a long time. But still, these are children. Yes, they are mutilated, can be mutilated, they can be disabled, but these are children. And when one talks about the reaction of their children. Mothers talk about the reaction that are not in line with the reality. But still, even if a mother sees her child somehow differently, which is not close to the reality, I would agree with her viewpoint. Nothing will change because that's how at least we will get one more healthy mother, and that's already very good. And under pressure and stress, now we are moving to the next slide. We will start discussing some sensitive topics. Can you go back, please? Yes, so here the second point. So in this situation of intense stress, we have to talk to strangers about very sensitive things. These are topics that we find difficult to even discuss with our dear ones, with our relatives. And in this moment, we come back to our feeling of shame. Why? Because families have unhealthy children, as they consider them. And when they talk to other families and parents with healthy children, they are afraid and they're ashamed of those. And there is some pressure coming from the society, even though we don't talk about this, but it exists. So next item, we need to create a safe space. One of the main conditions of creating a safe space for communication, it's not only about the space that we envision, but this is the space that should suit the parents. Where does one start? We need to provide the space to the parents where they'll be heard and they'll be understood. This is about active listening. This is about the capability of posing right questions. So this is an agreement, this is a covenant. And it provides the parents with the opportunity to take a break, to think about the situation, or accelerate addressing some issue that they believe to be quite clear. Maybe they can take a turn right or left. This will not happen immediately. This needs to be learned by parents, especially under such an intense stress. And we need to take into account that even if we provide this space, this doesn't mean that the parents will trust us. We don't know if the parents will use this opportunity, whether they'll be brave enough. We don't know. Nobody can guarantee this, but we shall at least provide this opportunity. We shall talk about this. And here we're talking about mutual responsibility. It's a two-way street, 50-50. We need to provide this opportunity to them, and we need to be active to make it happen properly. As I've already mentioned, people under stress usually follow the strategies of avoidance and running away. For example, the main character of the story Gone with the Wind kept saying, "I'll think about this tomorrow." And the last point here is about destructive or constructive solutions. Sometimes parents can say that they're very tired, they can't think about this now, etc. And also we can mention the magical thinking here and positive thinking here. It'll be quite helpful. We can only talk about positive things and then this will become the reality, and there are a lot of other ways as well. Why? Because any of these approaches is a habit, and habit has huge power. So I mentioned some challenges, but overcoming those is not enough, because parents shall also change their practices and start acting completely differently. And now we are moving to the next slide. psycho-emotional support in spiritual support. What is happening with us when we're facing stress? We keep thinking about this situation. We come back to the primary point, to the beginning. We keep thinking, what could I have done differently? What I didn't take into account, what I didn't see. And our fear and our anxiety are so powerful that they just make us go round in circles. It's about our emotions, it's about our feelings, and we get stuck in those. One of the fathers told me, he said that he couldn't fall asleep after everything that had happened. And he told me, when I close my eyes, I see my child, how my child is falling into this hole, and I get very angry. And this is just one example. There are many more examples that illustrate that people can get stuck in this vicious cycle. And when we have somebody next to us that is objective, that we can trust, but still this should be a person with whom we can safely discuss our emotions and problems, not only share the problems, but to discuss those and get the support. Support can be very different. Support can be not only about patting somebody on the back, but sometimes the support can even be painful. But once a person gets this kind of support, this will enable this person to break through this vicious cycle, go beyond it. And the more trust there is, the better the result will be. By the way, there are groups of support, and members of these communities and groups are also very helpful to one another. Well, everybody would like to avoid painful points and problems. And quite often, the first strategy that people choose is just to avoid those rather than to address those. Next one, communicating the diagnosis. Well, obviously, this is very important to do it and do it properly. Now, there's no question about this, but there are some dangers around this as well. One of those is connected to the interpretation of a diagnosis. Because quite often people think they understand, or actually they misunderstand the diagnosis that they were communicated about. And people can just get stuck and focus on the interpretation that they prefer. But this is not close to reality sometimes. Second habit is just to be silent about something, being incapable of talking about something very painful and emotional, because the diagnosis for the rest of their life raises quite strong emotions. And well, we also stuck in the situation when doctors keep mentioning the diagnosis, but parents do not really understand what's expected from them. And the situation can even get aggravated because a mother, for example, does not understand why do doctors keep talking about the diagnosis. I heard about this from one of the mothers. On the other hand, medical professionals, doctors, do not understand the response from the parents, from the mother, because sometimes they react quite in a weird way. But this crisis can be overcome quite easily just by discussion, talking about this, some questions, listening to each other. Both parties should hear each other. And if they do, then they'll see and understand that this is actually quite easy. I don't think I even need to comment this. The most important thing is that under stress and in very emotional situations, there are a lot of traps that are very tricky, so we should be very careful about this. And an additional factor that can influence our work here is the following. We talk to and support people that are on the edge of falling asleep. They barely have food. And well, here we're talking about intoxication of adult patients, those that can just lose the train of thought during the conversation. And well, sometimes these discussions are happening very slowly, but sometimes on the other hand or the other way around, they can be happening very fast, and one needs to be ready for this. What about our defensive reaction? They do exist. And how do they come to surface in medicine? For example, what we can often hear from doctors is that doctors do not remember a human being, a person, but they remember some part of a body, for example, a hand, a leg, etc. And quite often, professionals and we just remember some particular cases rather than people, because we say, oh, do you remember that case? And only then we start talking about a person, an individual. We all tend to emotionally distance ourselves to preserve our emotional balance and keep being efficient. We can lose the opportunity to establish good relationships with the doctor if we don't talk enough, and this is a prerequisite for good support. Contact here is very, very important, personal one, on the one hand. On the other hand, emotional involvement. Sometimes we can get too involved in the process. It barely can be avoided, but we risk here of losing our professional position. So when we visit patients, when we go to their homes, it's very important to ask ourselves, what am I doing? What is my goal there? And other questions related to these. Just a simple answer, I support somebody or I help somebody, this is not enough. This is the answer just for some articles in magazines, in media, but we need to find much more deeper answer. On the one hand, we should not be shallow regarding this. On the other hand, we should not get emotionally dependent on these people, because it's also quite dangerous. We really need to find the balance, the golden mean, and we need to keep the golden mean updated. We need to protect ourselves to stay professionals. We need to show to people that we are there. But I would like to give you another joke. A patient comes to a doctor and talks very carefully, as if this person is afraid of sneezing. The person says, "Doctor, I have very severe headaches in the morning and diarrhea in the evenings." And the patient says, "I can't deal with this anymore. Can you help me?" And the doctor just takes out a pill silently, gives to the patient, then breaks it in halves and says, "This half should be taken in the morning to help with headaches, and the second half of the same pill should be taken in the evening to fight against diarrhea." And it's very important not to mix those and confuse those, but it's still the same pill, right? So it's the effect of a placebo. And well, this is to illustrate that it can actually work, and we really need to build trust. Next slide, please. So the main idea of palliative care is integrative care, wholesome. During the whole process of giving palliative care, we can see some aspects of the palliative care coming to the front line. It's not because the other aspects are not important, but it's because we need to satisfy the main needs of the patient. But next day, this all can change. That's why the team is so important, the team that consists of all different professionals. And also, some members of the team can be liked by parents more than others. Well, that's life. Today, a lot of attention has been paid to emotions and feelings. because, well, their influence is underestimated. They really influence our conversations and our decisions and actions. Varis, I'm very sorry. I will. I would like to give you one advice. Just please be careful with your mic.
Can you hear me now? Yes, it's fine. It's fine. Thank you. I think many of you will remember about the emotional aspect that resonate with your own personal experience rather than some intellectual things. Impressive ideas that you have read or heard about. Our work is complex, delicate, and demanding. It requires knowledge and understanding, and the more we learn, the more we encounter what we do not understand. At times it may even seem that the palliative care is filled with so many difficulties that meaningful success is impossible. But yet, to our great surprise, we succeed, and we succeed quite often. I would like to express my gratitude to the previous speaker, John Marston. I watched her presentation 2 or 3 times, and some parts even 3 or 4 times. It was great. The exchange of knowledge and experience among experts in palliative care is extremely crucial. And this presentation actually was also inspired by that exchange. We share knowledge, ideas, understanding, and they are like small seeds that grow within us into trees. Trees that will one day provide shelter for the children and families under our care. That's it. Thank you. I tried to articulate it quite well so that you will be able to interpret it well as well. Thank you. Actually, indeed, I do not speak Russian quite often, so I have started to forget it. It became a bit rusty. No, indeed, we understood everything. Thank you very much. And all the values, experience, ideas have been shared with us. We got them. While I was listening to you, I got calmer, I think, even if I do not encounter the problems that your patients in palliative care have faced. While listening to you, one becomes calmer. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Those of you who joined us recently and didn't manage to be present at the first webinar dedicated to spiritual support and palliative care, I would like to remind you that our first webinar was dedicated to spiritual support, and it was organized, it was held by Pace and our speaker, John Marston, and Varis recommends it, as you have heard. You can look it on our website. And we move on to the interview. I will have a look at the chat room. So participants, thank you. It was quite interesting. Well, we will begin with the questions that our team has prepared. Well, we have faced the situation which implies that in hospices where palliative patients are, have many experts, medical experts, but it's quite hard to find spiritual experts. How can we understand if this or that person is good or not? We can quite easily understand if this or that social worker is fine, is good, is experienced, thanks to his or her credentials, diploma, certificates. As far as spiritual worker is concerned, it's quite delicate. Yes, indeed, it's a big support in Latvia. We have faced the same problem. Now, things got better. In the very beginning, in 1998, when I started all this, actually, this job didn't exist. And it can be different. Actually, everything begins with the university. As soon as the university has a special program dedicated to this, you will have jobs. Jobs dedicated to this very sphere, and you will have experts in this field. And so educational institutions start thinking about this. Indeed, there is another thing. Chaplain is quite particular, as this job is quite particular, actually.
Это очень специфическая такая сфера, и не все хотят, и не всем и нужно работать.
And not everyone can do it. Not everyone needs it. It will take time, but people will come. What are the criteria? How can we understand that this or that person corresponds to what we expect from him or her? Well, actually, it happens like this in any case. If when you start working with this or that person, you do not know how it will turn, what it will look like. We will see that in some time. It's not something that happens instantly. You know, there are there is understanding that people working in palliative care stay if they manage to stay for a year. But it's life, everything can change. Indeed, we need to think about it all the time. It's a question that is very important. We should communicate on this with educational institutions, because this is a new sphere. And over all these years, we managed to gather together a team in Latvia. And please, the floor is yours. Yes, I would like to add that actually all chaplains working in Latvia work in different spheres. So in our institution, we have 8 chaplains. But there are chaplains in other hospitals as well. And all of them have high theological education. And then they take courses of clinical and spiritual care. And after this, they get the skills that are needed for someone to work successfully in a spiritual palliative care. And our chaplain that got a master's degree made a thesis that included a questionnaire for mothers, for would-be mothers in maternity houses. Actually, in maternity houses, there are no chaplains in Riga. And we read the answers to this questionnaire with great interest, and Varis mentioned it. Actually, not all people understand what kind of support they can get from a chaplain. We say, for example, well, we have a chaplain in our team, maybe you would like to meet him. And people think that if a chaplain comes to see us, it means, well, our next of kin will die soon. So a chaplain is connected, is associated to death instantly in the minds of people. But actually, we speak about spiritual support that is accessible to everyone. And chaplains working in hospitals help everyone. I mean, people who are not believers, who are not religious, people who come from different religions as well. So I think these things are very important. Thank you very much, Anda. I can see the questions from our colleagues in Kyrgyzstan who say that in Kyrgyzstan there is no support like this. Spiritual support is very important and we speak about it, but it still doesn't exist in the country. Another question from the chat. Varis, what's your point of view on death doulas? Yes, I've heard about them. I'm not sure if this is quite common in our country, but I know that this exists. There are doulas that accompany future mothers. But there is one problem when we think about death, about dying. It is a unique process. And whatever experts you have, he or she cannot get to the point, really, because everyone will get his or her experience in this sphere only once. And this is the biggest problem. Sometimes when someone says me, well, this is an expert in dying, as if this person has died several times. But, well, maybe that can help someone. Death doulas can help someone. It's like an alternative in palliative care, but I do not think that this will really happen. I do not think that death doulas will be an alternative to palliative care. Actually, every person is very multifaceted. And you cannot be an expert in all spheres. And this is why we need a teams of palliative care. If you manage to build a trust-based relations, well, it's great. But it creates a risk. And I mentioned it as well. If we take a very distant position, we won't be able to help. If we're very neutral, we won't be able to help. If we if we are in very deep relations with this or that person or patient, well, it's actually not possible because we ourselves, we cannot die. And so what we can do is to help, to support. When we help, we face quite confrontational issues. When we're deeply involved, we cannot ask these confrontational, these very difficult questions because because the person who helps is deeply involved with this or that family that has faced this very serious problem. So in the presentation, I tried to show that we should choose something in between. We should always ask ourselves questions. What I want to get? What is my goal? It is not just presence, something that I strive to in my work. It is a very important question that is like a star that guides me, something that I strive to. We have held several seminars on this. It's quite a complicated process. But I should say that when we are next to people who are dying, especially when these are next of kin, actually we do not follow the formulas, the standards. Yes, Varis, thank you very much. This is quite. This is not quite obvious. Yeah. Indeed, there is a difference, and I can understand your concerns. Our webinar is coming to an end, and there is one question that we can ask. Well, what can help you? What can help you get your internal resources, keep them, and especially taking into account that you are always next to a loss, next to people who are suffering. Yes, I've mentioned this. I ask myself, what is my goal? What do I want to achieve? And this is something that helps me to build borders. We do work, but we do have some rest. I have my concerns, my hobbies, my life, my personal life. It's very important. Actually, this question, what I want to achieve, is very important. Is very important for my personal life as well. I ask myself this. So this question is professional and personal as well, and there is balance between them, between these spheres, between these two questions, professional and personal. Because you can have a burnout if you concentrate on your professional life only. And I think about what I can get, what I want to achieve, what I am interested in.
Thank you very much. I also paid attention to this question, and I'll definitely keep asking myself about this, where I'm going, why I'm going there. Thank you. We have one more question, and we have a couple of minutes left, and then we'll conclude. So the question is, how can we understand a child's spiritual needs, especially if the child is very young or unable to speak openly about their feelings? I guess this question comes from a mother's side. Well, small children see their mother as the central figure. And in our daily work, we communicate with children only if a mother asks for this. For example, she doesn't understand something, and then we can establish direct communication with the children. But mostly we work with mothers, and our responsibility is to communicate with them. And a mother is an example, right? And it's very important for us to understand what is the personal experience of the mother we are working with. So we only communicate with children if there is a request from the mother regarding this. For example, a mother wants to understand something better, then we can discuss it. And then we can also advise how one can help this particular child. But if a child is speechless, can't talk at all, then we can also talk to the mother, and we can enable the mother to talk to the child. And it always works, actually. Even if there are children without the development that we have, it still works because they can respond to the voice, to the touches. Our voice has a million of different tones, and actually these children understand immediately when there is somebody else talking and not their mother. So the mother's voice is recognized by the child, and she can talk to the child, and the child will definitely understand it. Varis, thank you very much. It was very deep, very interesting. I'd really like to keep going and discussing our topic. Unfortunately, our time is almost up. So I would like to thank you for your participation. We'll have the recording of this webinar for those who couldn't connect in a live mode. We'll also share the slides with our groups, so members could also study it. So I would also like to thank our interpreters, Yulia Kuvashova and Anna Akmaeva, were working for you today. We really appreciate your recognition. And also, Anna got a child, baby, quite recently. Congratulations. We're very happy for you, and we wish your family good health. And thank you. Thank you for being with us today, even being a very young mother. Thank you for finding the time and resource to interpret this webinar into English to make it more accessible for everybody. So, Varis, thank you very much. We keep in touch. So, thank you very much, everybody who is connected. Join our social media, join our channels, our chats. We'll be very happy to see you all there, and have a good day. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Take care. See you soon.